Right now, Nancy Pelosi and Congress have come up with this really, really perfectly titled piece of legislation called the HEROES Act. And the HEROES Act is just, it's hilarious to me because it's so muddled with a lot of pieces in the legislation that are really anything but heroic. There are a lot of parts of the bill that hurt particular people, and I'm just gonna go over what it is. This is right now being debated by the House. It's a $3 trillion relief bill, and they are meeting right now to vote on it. And this is the Health and Economic Recovery Omnibus Emergency Solutions Act, or the HEROES Act. It includes $200 billion for hazard pay for frontline healthcare workers, $75 billion to expand COVID-19 testing, and allocates funding for state and local governments whose budgets have been walloped by shortfalls in tax revenue due to the coronavirus pandemic. It also includes up to $10,000 in student loan forgiveness. This is something I want to look deep into, and a new round of $1,200 stimulus payments, meaning just another one-time payment of $1,200. The American
All right,
people,
I got the next 10 weeks planned.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, $1,200. I mean, that's all. That's like all of your rent, I'm sure.
I bought a condo in Malibu with the first one. So I don't know what I'm gonna do with this one. I might get a motorcycle.
2 condos in Florida. So Pelosi says that she's putting this out because the American people are worth it. And she told the AP that that this is going to be a struggle in the Senate, where Mitch McConnell likely is going to stop this.
Can we take a quick minute to point out how painfully condescending that was? You guys are worth it. You're worth. Wait a second. This is your job. This is your job. You're an elected official. It's your job that when a pandemic happens, you look out for the people, which is, by the way, the opposite of what our government has done. Our government, bill after bill, if you really want to sum it up nuts and bolts, they just said, hey, banks, here's a bunch of money. You'll give it to people, right? And the banks are like, maybe if we feel like it. And our government said, good enough. We're going to go on vacation. That's, if you really want nuts and bolts, super cliff notes, that's essentially what happened. So now she's, oh, you guys are worth it. Like, no. You're being called upon to do your job. The job where you enriched yourself over the course of 40 some years. That's why you don't understand why anyone would have any opposition to you showing off your two $12,000 freezers while eating ice cream that costs like $1 million a pint or however much it was. Well, there are people in line for food a la the Great Depression. And you'll wonder why people have an issue with that.
She, and we discussed this a couple days ago, but she is also making sure that if you get the $1,200 payment, that you don't go over the amount you're supposed to get. Because if you get $1,200 plus $600 and you're still unemployed, you can't do that. You can't double dip. They called it double dipping.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that. Like, Lucy's pissed about that.
I'm pissed
She is
too,
having
Lucy.
None of it.
We love double dipping, right? I mean, the poor people they're just getting rich right now. With unemployment at like 14.7 nationally, everybody's just enriching themselves. So,
and by the way, it's not a handout, quote unquote, when you can't work because of a pandemic.
Right.
I mean, this is what a federal government is for. That in situation, well, there's a lot of things that they're for, but one of the things that government is for is that in a situation like this, you look out for the people. If you're making it out like you're doing us some favor, you're not. You're just doing your job. Just like Andrew Cuomo, when he speaks in front of the camera, and Gavin Newsom, they speak in front of the camera like they've listened to a scientist once in the past 30 years, and everyone wets themselves and goes, oh, they should be president. It's like, no, they're barely adequately being presentable at their job. When you look beneath the surface, you find out, well, actually, Cuomo cut Medicaid, which really hurt New York in spite of all this. He also has been screwing over the homeless for years, which God knows during a pandemic did not do anything good. Gavin Newsom has neglected hospitals right in Los Angeles, didn't give Riverside the equipment they needed, gave about 24 fracking permits all across the state of California, all while he was posing in front of the camera going, look at all the ventilators I'm
Newsom
sending
for
throughout the
president.
country.
2024.
Yeah, let's recruit him for president. He has nice hair. I mean, it's just,
He's
It's
Nancy
unfreaking
Pelosi's nephew.
believable.
Like, that's another thing.
I found out about that recently. You know what's funny? Somebody pointed that to me recently, and it gave me a little bit of solace because I found out another distant cousin of his is Joanna Newsom, who I don't know if you know who that is. She's a musician. I personally am a fan of her music. And I know nothing about her personal politics, nor, I mean, they're like second cousins twice removed. So it's not like that has much to do with her at all. But I was like, oh, wow, she's related to Gavin. And then you find out, oh, he also has relations to Pelosi.
Yeah, I mean, if you look really deep, it's kind of crazy, but a lot of these powerful people are related. And then you wonder, like, that how they came into power. Matt Stoller, who is kind of hit or miss for me. Like, I don't agree with a lot of his takes, and then sometimes when it comes to economics, he says some things that are worth listening to. But he tweeted about the HEROES Act cuts pensions for essential workers, and there's a document here, in a letter that we have, where they, a group of these unions and these essential workers are writing a letter to Nancy Pelosi, to Chuck Schumer, and the Senate and the House. And they say, our organizations representing tens of millions of workers and retirees strongly support passage of this year's critical legislation to assist severely underfunded multi-employer pension plans to ensure that retirees and their families receive their hard-earned pensions. More than 10 million Americans depend on multi-employer pensions, plus a secure in retirement for themselves and their families. Throughout their careers, these workers gave up a portion of wages to earn their pension benefits. In retirement, they deserve to receive the pensions earned and retire with dignity. The Emergency Pension Relief Act, proposed advanced by senators, meets this standard by using special partisan program funded by the federal government to support troubled plans and their participants. We urge that this proposal be passed as soon as possible. At the same time, we strongly oppose the composite plan legislation, including GROW Act, hurts workers, retirees, employers, and the pension benefit guarantee population, and should not become law. Composite legislation is deeply flawed because it allows multi-employer trustees to refinance their obligation to workers and retirees in their existing plan over 25 years instead of 15 years, so they can divert the money to start a new composite plan. And they basically just talked about if Congress already passed the GROW Act and it was a law now, workers in a previously healthy multi-employer pension plan that converted into a composite plan would face draconian benefit cuts. They would be cut 70%, and the invested benefits they already earned would be cut 25%. And at the same time, the vested benefits of workers in the existing plan would be cut by 21%. To avoid benefit cuts, employers would be required to increase contributions by approximately 82% above what they had already committed to. So they continue to talk about like all the things that it does, and this part of that is inside the HEROES Act. And this is from the International Brotherhood of Boilermakers, the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, Machinists and Aerospace Workers, the Longshore Warehouse Unit, Musicians for Pension Security, SEIU, the United Steelworkers, United Food and Commercial Workers of International Union, and a few others. So it's really interesting because most of us wouldn't really know about this. We don't really, I mean, it's like hundreds of pages of legislation, and these people half the time that's what happened last time with the CARES Act. They got it the night before. Most people didn't read it, and they just ended up blindly supporting it. And what we're seeing is a few of our progressive leaders, so to speak, are not supporting this legislation. And some of those people are Ro Khanna, Jayapal, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, among others. What do you think what do you think we should do? Like, is it worth it opposing a bill when people need money? Because this should have happened like a long time ago. Like, if you were going to oppose anything, we should have done it months ago.
You should have done it initially so that it set a better standard out the gate. I mean, it's one of those things like when you look at, because they're saying, well, this is really going to struggle in the Senate, which is code for like Republicans are going to gut this thing. And what are they going to gut? Well, they're going to gut the parts that are better about it. Like they're going to gut the parts about, like hazard pay and stuff like that. Those are the parts they're going to go after. We all know this. The parts that help out the lobbyists and help out the bank, that's all going to be fine. They're not going to touch that. They're going to touch the parts that help regular people. So, it's just one of those things when you start from, it's just like basic rules of compromise that, we see it time and time again, where instead of starting with the sky, we're saying we are going to, completely suspend rent, and we're going to cancel rent, and we're going to cancel mortgages, and we're going to give direct relief to people in the form of an emergency UBI, and we're going to do this. Yep. Instead of starting there, they already start from this significant point of compromise because they don't want to do anything to disrupt their donors. So then it just gets further gutted to the point where it's like, this is just a straight up banana republic. I almost wish we just had an ATM that Wall Street could just go use, because then at least then it would be less subtle and more people would see it. And they'd be like, wow, they just replaced our government with an ATM for Wall Street, and we're hoping that we get a couple crumbs. That's essentially what's going on, just with a more smiley face attached to it. So
it would be more honest, I guess, in that way.
Right?
100%. Zephyr Teachout has been one of the people that I've really liked throughout this whole thing. She's been, she's been really honest. She's criticized Cuomo. She's been on it as far as a progressive. And she reiterated the fact that Jayapal, along with Ro Khanna, is waging a significant fight for people's security, paycheck guarantee, healthcare, and against lobbyist bailouts. Of course, one of the parts in this whole thing is a huge bailout for lobbyists. Mm-hmm. It's one of those key moments for the Democratic Party. Do not rush through a bad bill. Oppose the HEROES Act. So here she's calling for the opposition of the HEROES Act. And further, the Sunrise Movement just updated Jayapal, Ro Khanna, AOC, Mark Pocan, Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, Ilhan Omar, Katie Porter, and Chuy Garcia did not vote for the HEROES Act today. So it's interesting. Like I said, I agree with you. This should have set the standard a long time ago. To me, a lot of it feels like grandstanding, and I haven't actually been able to see any sort of like speech besides Nancy Pelosi's. And I just think at this point it's like, okay, yeah, like we want something better. But really, what are we doing to hold Nancy Pelosi accountable?